On my birthday, I received a cancer diagnosis and a court summons. My daughter sued me for lack of companionship. Which department will start? During the company's quarterly review meeting, I tapped my pen on the table, signaling a silent urge for someone to begin. The company had been operating at a loss for 3 consecutive years, with only 20% of physical stores turning a profit in the first quarter of this year. This was the responsibility of all management, including me, the owner. I had already conducted a thorough self-criticism at the beginning of the meeting. Now it was the management's turn. Each person sat with their head down, holding their breath, reluctant to be the first to speak. Had the design and development department conducted thorough market research to create products that customers were willing to pay for? Had the production and supply chains strictly controlled losses and ensured the quality of delivered products? Had the marketing and sales department developed better marketing strategies from the perspective of serving every customer? The issues in each department were clear, but no one wanted to admit their shortcomings. I signaled Assistant Wu, who handed out a document to each executive. From major decision-making errors to minor attendance issues, every mistake was documented. The executives gasped collectively when they saw it all laid out. The lights in the conference room came on, revealing everyone's disheartened expressions. In today's environment of layoffs, everyone just hoped to avoid mistakes rather than achieve success. But running a company is like sailing against the current. If you don't forge ahead, you'll be swept away by the market. I know there are rumors that the company's poor performance will lead to an acquisition by a listed company and that layoff notices could come at any time. I stood up and walked behind each colleague, lightly patting their chair backs. But I, Jian Hui, promise here and now that the company will not be acquired. As long as everyone performs their duties well, there will be no layoffs. I hope everyone can lift their spirits and help the company through these tough times. At the conference room door, I pulled it open as the front desk staff brought in milk tea, 1 cup for each person. Full sugar is unhealthy, half sugar is just right. Life needs a bit of sweetness to keep us going, I said, shaking my cup. Meeting adjourned. After drinking so much coffee and tea, I had to admit, young people loved this milk tea for a reason. It tasted pretty good. Just as I returned to my office, Assistant Wu knocked and entered, carrying a cake. Happy birthday, President Jian. This is a small token from our administration department. After Assistant Wu left, I stared at the single sparkler candle on the cake. How old am I this year? It seemed that once past 35, time hit fast forward, and 10 years flew by in the blink of an eye. I looked at my phone, but there were no birthday wishes. My husband was busy entertaining business partners, unlikely to come home early tonight. When I checked my daughter's recent activities, her social media only showed a single gray line. I remembered Assistant Wu mentioning that this meant I was blocked, a way to hide real-life activities from outsiders. Outsiders? But I am her mother. I set down the milk tea, feeling an overwhelming bitterness in my mouth. I opened the window and lit a cigarette. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 2 documents in the pile of pending files that didn't belong to company business. One was from the hospital, the results of my recent endoscopy. A raised mass was found in my stomach, requiring further biopsy and examination. My mood plummeted until I saw the other document, pushing me into a deeper abyss. It was from the court. I was being sued. When I saw the plaintiff's name, I paused and took a drag of my cigarette. The cigarette glowed and dimmed as I coughed violently, burning a hole in the paper. The person suing me was my own daughter. Peng Dong and I have only one daughter. While my sisters secretly tried for a second child in hopes of having a son, I became the brand agent for the northern region, too busy to handle anything else. At that time, Xian was still little, and everyone around me advised that a child needed her mother. Reluctantly, I handed over the business to Peng Dong. Before heading south, I equipped him with a phone, imported leather jackets, shoes, and belts. However, Peng Dong lacked discernment. After a few meals with local businessmen, he lost track of business priorities. The goods he ordered couldn't be sold. When it became clear that the second store was on the brink of closing and all our earnings were about to be lost, I had no choice but to leave Xian and venture out. Back then, the trains to the south were slow and exhausting. With selecting products and negotiating partnerships, each trip took at least half a month. When the goods finally arrived, the schedule was even more grueling. At 5 in the morning, I had to be at the logistics station to wait for packages, then distribute and transport them to stores, check the displays, and finally return home late at night. During that period, Xian grew so fast that each time I saw her, it felt disorienting. The new clothes I bought were always too small for her, and the new hairpins I brought from the south didn't seem to interest her. Only the imported ceramic dolls from 2 brand partners made her happy for a while. Our communication was rare, and Xuan's updates were always about her academic achievements. Maybe it was because I taught her to be independent from a young age. She was very self-disciplined in her studies, always ranking in the top 3 of her class. She smoothly progressed through her special classes and the transition to middle school. But something changed when she entered her 3rd year of middle school. Xian no longer liked going to school, frequently citing health issues to take leave. Pinyu Dong, usually unreliable, was extremely protective of her. His pampering made Xian increasingly temperamental. She failed her college entrance exam and ended up in a regular university, where her behavior became even more outrageous. Recently, after causing a disturbance over a breakup with her boyfriend, she was sent home by the school for a week to cool off. I wanted to ask about the situation, but I never even got to see her. Pinyu Dong and the housekeeper could enter Xuan's room, but I was barred. Over the years, a thick wall had grown between us, completely shutting me out of her world. Xian sued me for failing to fulfill my duties of education and protection, claiming that she endured numerous pains during her upbringing. I don't understand. I've provided the best living conditions for her. She had the choice to study hard or pursue her interests. But she blames the world and me for her emotional setbacks, accusing me of not being there for her and not guiding her properly. I wanted to talk to Xian, but even after sending her a message, I didn't see her that evening. The housekeeper prepared a table full of food, yet in the end, I ate alone. Thinking about the doctor's appointment for a follow-up exam tomorrow, which coincides with the court's pre-litigation mediation, I put down my chopsticks, rubbed my temples, and texted the doctor to reschedule. There's no choice. I gave birth to her, so I must take responsibility. From the moment a child is born, a mother is bound, and there is no longer any freedom. When I saw Dong Xianyuan in the mediation room, a sudden pain gripped my heart. She had lost a lot of weight. Her once tall and well-proportioned figure now looked like a fragile reed swaying in the wind, ready to collapse at any moment. She's already 20, an adult, yet she still hasn't learned to take care of herself. Are you biological mother and daughter? If these are just some family conflicts, let's talk them through today. There's no need to go to court. Even a wise judge struggles to settle family matters. Among family, is there really so much right and wrong? The mediator motioned for me to sit down first. Suppressing my anger, I sat across from Xianyuan. A sharp pain in my abdomen made me pause for a moment before I could sit down steadily. The mediator asked Xianyuan to state the facts and reasons for her lawsuit. This was the first time she looked at me since entering the room. Her eyes held an indescribable distance and coldness. You only care about business, not about me or this family. When I was young, you were always traveling for work. In winter, Dad had to take me to the men's bathhouse. You might think I was too young to remember, but I knew I didn't belong there. I knew I shouldn't be there. When I was 11, I had a stubborn baby tooth that wouldn't fall out. You just booked a dentist appointment for me. I went alone, and my mouth tasted of antiseptic and pain. That day, I skipped my extracurricular class for the first time. The teacher didn't report it, and you didn't notice. Then there were piano, sketching, math, and English classes that I eventually stopped attending. 2 years later, you finally asked if I had passed the piano level 10 exam. During my middle school military training, I got my period for the first time. You never talked to me about these things. I bled through my pants, and it wasn't until the class change in the second year that I made any friends. I secretly used your sanitary pads for 3 years without daring to mention it. Later, you got even busier. You completely pushed me to Dad. You worried more about sick employees than about me. Xuan Yuan's eyes reddened, her voice choked, and she even blamed her hurtful relationship on the lack of maternal love in her childhood. Each of her accusations felt like a knife, each word cutting into me, nearly slicing through my flesh. More disheartening than the estrangement was the resentment now present in Xuan Yuan's eyes. You might be an excellent entrepreneur, but you're definitely not a competent mother, nor the perfect woman the media praises. Bam! I slapped the table, raising my right hand high, but seeing Xuan Yuan biting her lip and glaring at me stubbornly, I couldn't bring myself to strike. The mediator asked me to sit down and poured us both a cup of hot water. Ms. Jianhui, you need to understand that children need their mothers. She's already an adult, but childhood regrets are the hardest to mend. Her lawsuit is essentially a plea for more care and companionship. No matter how busy work is, you should make time for your family. Balancing career and family is essential. Holding the paper cup, I didn't realize my palm was burned until the mediator pointed it out. Feeling a cold shiver throughout, the heat in my hands almost tore me apart. I set down the cup, straightened my back, and looked at Xuan Yuan. There is no balance between career and family, only choices. I couldn't be both a decisive businesswoman ensuring our livelihood and a gentle, attentive mother providing emotional support. I am imperfect and have never sought to be perfect in others' eyes. I didn't give birth to you to fulfill my expectations. Your life is your own. I have a clear conscience. Finishing the last word forcefully, my body trembled from exhaustion. The mediation outcome no longer mattered. If my daughter insisted on going to court, I would be there. As I stood up, a strong wave of nausea surged from my abdomen, as if my body was retaliating against the negative emotions. I stumbled, steadied myself by the door, and as soon as I stepped out of the mediation room, I tasted blood and vomited. Because my vomit contained blood, I was urgently admitted to the hospital for tests. The attending physician reviewed the results and spoke at length, but only a few key words registered with me. Stomach cancer, mid-stage, requiring immediate radical surgery, which would remove about 2/3 of my stomach. I've had stomach problems for a long time. During the early days of my startup, I handled everything personally, working from morning until night, often without a proper meal or even enough water. My gastritis progressed to ulcers, and I had been hospitalized several times due to bleeding. When the company was newly established, every aspect needed my supervision, so I could only stay in the hospital briefly before returning to work. I always took my medication as prescribed and had a gastroscopy every quarter. Only at the end of last year, with unsold products, insufficient funds, and thousands of employees waiting for their year-end wages, I skipped my regular checkup. After 3 consecutive years of losses, obtaining loans became extremely difficult. I visited every major bank to prevent a greater credit crisis for the company. Unexpectedly, 6 months later, this checkup revealed mid-stage stomach cancer. As I looked at the report, I kept reassuring myself that at least it wasn't late stage. However, the fear of a terminal illness still left me paralyzed. You brought this upon yourself. Xuan Yuan's voice sounded behind me, sharp and unfamiliar. How you treat your body is how it will treat you. Do you still think business is the most important thing now? Her words were so harsh that even the doctor frowned. Mother and daughter turning into enemies. It's a bitter irony. Dong Xuan Yuan, how can you talk to your mother like that? Do you think it's easy for her to make money? Dong Pengyu rushed over after getting the news, but his first concern wasn't my health. It was that I might scold our daughter. He needn't worry. I had neither the heart nor the strength to do so. The doctor suggested I be admitted immediately for further tests to prepare for surgery. Dong Pengyu took the payment slip and tried to pull Xuan Yuan along. She shook off his hand and turned to leave. Whoever wants to go can go. She has money. She can hire a couple of caregivers. Don't bother us. Dong Pengyu gave her a mild scolding and went to complete my admission. When you need him, he's always around, but he never provides what you truly want. From lovers to spouses, time has eroded all the excitement and expectations. We're just the most familiar strangers in the world. As long as Dong Pengyu doesn't cheat and can help hold the family together, that's enough. The attending physician managed to arrange a single room for me. After preparing my personal items, Dong Pengyu stood outside making calls, asking a recently discharged relative to recommend a reliable caregiver. When he was touting the caregiver's professionalism, I remained silent and asked about Xuan Yuan's current living situation. She's renting an apartment near her school with friends. I checked it out. The neighborhood is safe. Don't worry. Dong Pengyu found it amusing that Xian Yuan had sued me and suggested I give her more pocket money to ease her worries. While he went to get hot water, I transferred 20,000 yuan to Xian Yuan, telling her to eat well. She took the money but didn't reply even after half an hour. I smiled bitterly, put down my phone, and saw Wu Assistant had sent next week's schedule. I thought that my health was the priority and that everything else could be postponed. But when I opened it, I saw items I couldn't delay: a loan review, hosting foreign guests, and a provincial fashion association event. On one side was my newly issued hospital gown. On the other, Wu Assistant's call. My inner scale had already made its choice. Pressing my abdomen, I answered the call, speaking simply and firmly. I am fine. I'm coming back to the office. In recent years, the declining birth rate has had a direct impact on the children's clothing industry. Along with rising labor and production costs, many well-known companies in the industry have gone bankrupt. Our company is currently surviving on commercial loans. Casual discussions in meetings don't reflect the grim reality. If we don't change the current situation, the company won't last until the end of the year. In the face of this crisis, every department has presented response plans. The most supported proposal among all management levels is to introduce a fully automated production line, maximizing productivity while reducing labor costs. If implemented, at least 2/3 of the 1,000 workers in the factory will lose their jobs. 5 years ago, I established a factory for disabled workers in the city. As of the end of last year, we had over 500 disabled workers employed there. In the current poor employment environment, losing their jobs would be like the sky falling for the second time. To save the company and secure everyone's livelihoods, a better solution must be found. Wu Assistant brought dinner before leaving work, but it had already gone cold on the table. I extinguished my cigarette, turned my chair towards the window, and watched as lights began to glow in the dark concrete jungle outside. Families, busy with work and study all day, were gathering around the dinner table, eating a meal of 4 dishes and a soup, sharing anecdotes, and maybe even arguing over who would wash the dishes. This simplest form of happiness was something I had never experienced. I did feel envy, but not loss. Like business, life requires making choices. Rather than being a dutiful mother and wife, I wanted to break free from gender constraints and always keep the power of choice in my own hands. I forced myself to finish the porridge and took the last painkiller from the drawer. The night was still long. As long as I treated every day as the first day of my business, fighting and striving, it felt like being 25 again, invincible. After enduring a week and finishing 4 boxes of painkillers, I finally finalized the plan. We would introduce an intelligent production line and shut down 60% of unprofitable physical stores. Instead of layoffs, we would train all surplus staff to become online customer service representatives, strengthening online marketing to convert traffic into sales. When Wu Assistant received the plan, he immediately raised a question. Ms. Jian, where will the traffic come from? That afternoon, I visited the factory and had a meal with the colleagues in the canteen. The proposal to do live streaming received unanimous support. It wasn't to gain sympathy through our disabilities, but to show that there's a group of people in society's corners who are striving to live their lives. The camera was set far away, with no script, no host. Everyone just did their jobs. When the manager was excitedly gesturing to the workers in the corner, a large number of viewers joined the live stream. Some questioned if the management was abusing the employees, but those who knew sign language pointed out that it wasn't scolding but sign language. The manager was explaining safety production rules to a newly hired disabled employee. Later, when he walked in front of the camera and shyly explained in sign language that he was hearing impaired, the scene went viral. Since the live stream had disabled gift rewards, the online store was quickly emptied, surprising the factory director and other managers. When they gathered in the live stream, viewers discovered that over 60% of our factory's workers were disabled. This self-rescue effort far exceeded expectations. After doing all I could and arranging everything for the company, I was admitted to the hospital for surgery, which removed nearly 2/3 of my stomach along with the lesions, but it wasn't enough. Half a month later, doctors found that the cancer cells had metastasized and chemotherapy followed. Before starting chemotherapy, Dong Pingyu accompanied me to a hair salon to shave off the short hair I had maintained for nearly 10 years. Looking into the mirror, I suddenly thought of Xianyuan, remembering the softness in my heart when I held her as a baby. I picked out a wig with long hair in the shop. When I put it on, Dong Pingyu was momentarily stunned. "It's been a long time since I saw you like this." I had strived to be myself for 10 years. But in the end, what they missed was the dutiful mother and good wife. The company's revenue has hit new highs for 2 consecutive quarters, giving the management team a boost of confidence. When they stepped up, I finally had some breathing room. After completing 5 rounds of chemotherapy, I went from initial nausea and vomiting to fatigue and overall discomfort, often bedridden for 2 to 3 days at a time. Post-gastrectomy, I suffered from acid reflux and heartburn, keeping me awake all night, often sitting in the living room. Xianyuan loved staying up late. Her room light would stay on until dawn. When she came out to pick up her takeout and saw me, she'd mumble something under her breath and quickly walk away. During the day, she either slept or went out with friends. My daughter was demanding maternal love through a lawsuit while simultaneously rejecting the present me. Even the most difficult competitors were easier to handle than her. Today is Xuanyuan's 21st birthday. My helper accompanied me out shopping for 4 or 5 hours. I carefully chose a birthday cake and gifts for Xianyuan and planned to cook a meal with her favorite dishes. Human lamb, braised eggplant, braised pork ribs. These were the dishes I learned to make while raising Xianyuan. Whenever I made these, she wouldn't insist on eating at KFC. I often wondered, is being the good mother my daughter wants the life I desire? My mother raised 5 children and was a good mother, but she could never hold her head high among relatives because she only had 1 son. She lived cautiously and repressed, always putting my father first. I don't want people to remember me as a self-sacrificing mother when they see "beloved mother" on my tombstone, perpetuating the stereotype of motherhood instead of recognizing the real me. Who says a woman's life should only consist of being a good daughter, wife, and mother? I just want to be myself. But that doesn't mean I don't love Xianyuan. I hope to tell her this before tomorrow's court hearing. After 7:30 p.m., I stopped the helper from reheating the dishes for the 2nd time. Xianyuan had unblocked me on social media. I saw that she had spent the entire day at the amusement park with Dong Pingyu, both of them wearing plush headbands and smiling in every photo. Her caption read, "Thanks to Dad for 20 years of companionship. You taught me how to skate, ride a bike, and took me fishing and elephant riding. You're the most important person in my life." I wiped the corner of my eye with the back of my hand, recalling through blurred vision the first moment I saw Xianyuan. I had already made up my mind. She was the daughter I fought to bring into this world. She didn't need to be sensible, obedient, or strive to meet others' expectations. I would create everything for her. She just needed to learn to be herself and love herself. Happy birthday. Mom loves you. I liked Xuanyuan's post and typed the simple message several times due to the dizziness from the chemotherapy. Tomorrow, the case with Xianyuan goes to court. I will present my truest self. Even as a mother, I have the right to choose my life, and that should not be considered a crime. The next day, as soon as I arrived at the courthouse, I was surrounded by waiting media. Being the first case in the city where a daughter sues her biological mother had drawn everyone's attention. Ms. Jian, do you feel you failed your daughter? Have you considered putting down your career to mend your mother-daughter relationship? What do you think about the comments saying that you gave birth, but didn't raise your child, that it's not about empowering women but pure selfishness? Ms. Jian, do you believe that only by pursuing a career can women realize their personal value? If all housewives were like you, who would teach the children and take care of the elderly? Leaving everything to men, do you think that's fair? The microphones and cameras left me no way out. Every breath and change in expression was being recorded, analyzed, and even misinterpreted. Today, not only were the media present, but also many mothers and wives who originally supported me. They were swayed by the highly provocative questions from the media, and their stance began to waver. The stability of countless families is the foundation of social harmony. What's wrong with a husband handing over all his earnings and children being obedient? Ms. Jian, I admire your self-made success and independence, but not all women have that capability. Children don't have a choice, but you do. Since you gave birth, you should bear the responsibility of being a mother. The one-sided arguments turned into a blade, attempting to execute me on the spot. The crowd jostled and pushed, distancing me further from the threshold of justice. Suddenly, a microphone got tangled in my hair, pulling off my wig. The scene fell silent immediately, as if an invisible force had drained the air, leaving only the low hum of machinery. Society has an innate sympathy for those suffering. At this moment, being terminally ill granted me the right to defend myself. A reporter handed me the wig, but I didn't put it back on. Instead, I faced the cameras, boldly showing my true self. Why is it considered natural for fathers to earn money for the family? Why is it that once children are born, only the mother is bound by them? Children idolize their fathers, but overly depend on their mothers. If maternal love is seen as essential for a child's mental and physical health, isn't that a form of extortion? The identity of a mother should not be a woman's shackle. A mother who cooks well is still a mother, and one who earns money is still a mother. What if one day, children are no longer satisfied with mere companionship and seek better material conditions? What kind of mother will they want then? We don't need to, nor can we, meet all expectations. Likewise, children's lives belong to themselves. So, I paused, taking a step forward with a resounding declaration. Please give mothers the right to choose. The voices of doubt ceased. Apart from me, everyone's expressions subtly shifted. The reporters lowered their microphones. The tools meant to judge me now seemed unbearably heavy. They made way for me to enter the courthouse, knowing that at the end of this path, there was no winning or losing. As I reached the steps, I vaguely heard someone calling my name. The morning sun was blazing. I turned and looked for a long time before spotting Dong Pingyu. He strode towards me, the world behind him rapidly fading and collapsing. Dong Pingyu's eyes were bloodshot, making my heart inexplicably uneasy. Saignant comité de suicide. Jian Hui, you are not fit to be a mother. Xianyuan had taken a large dose of sleeping pills on the high-speed train back in the morning. She told Dong Pingyu she was tired and wanted to sleep. Near the destination, a train attendant noticed something was wrong. After urgent measures and being rushed to the hospital as soon as they arrived, her life was no longer in danger after stomach pumping. On the way to the hospital with Dong Pingyu, he slapped himself repeatedly. He blamed himself for not noticing Xuanyuan's distress, for not knowing she had secretly been seeing a psychologist for half a year, stockpiling medication to end her life. And she chose the day after her birthday to do it. When we reached the hospital, Xianyuan was still in a deep, uneasy sleep. Seeing her fragile state shattered all my strength as a mother. Xianyuan once had a high fever in the middle of the night when she was little. Ever since then, no matter how late or tired I was when I got home, I would habitually go to her room and feel her forehead for temperature. Perhaps it was a mother's intuition, but even without turning on the lights, I could sense when she was restless from a nightmare. I would then hold her in my arms, singing out-of-tune lullabies to chase away her fears, and my day's fatigue would vanish. Later, Xianyuan started locking her door. During that period, standing outside her door, I often felt a hollow emptiness. I could only convince myself that my daughter was growing up and needed her own space. The primary doctor assured us that with active treatment, Xianyuan wouldn't have any lasting physical damage, but we couldn't afford to relax. The most severe issue now was her mental state. No matter how old Xianyuan gets, she's our daughter. She just wants companionship. What's wrong with that? If you comfort her and give in a bit, this wouldn't have happened. Dong Pingyu's reproach wasn't sharp, but it easily pierced the defense I had built within. Wiping away my tears, I pushed him back a few steps. And what have you done for our daughter? Playing cards, socializing, drinking, just giving her whatever she wanted to keep her quiet, without ever caring about her real needs. You made her weak. Leaning against the wall, I clutched my chest, gasping for breath. Struggling with my emotions, I nearly crumbled under the weight of my guilt. Children are not merely extensions of their parents' lives and spirits. They aren't born strong. They naturally fear everything in the world. Even if we don't expect them to soar high, we should at least teach them to weather the storms and grow genuinely. There must still be a chance. As we approached the hospital room, Dong Pingyu suddenly stopped me. From today on, I won't play cards, drink, or socialize. I'll dedicate myself to our daughter completely. Dong Pingyu scrutinized me. Jianhui, can you let go of the company and be only Xuanyuan's mother? I opened my mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. I couldn't do it. There are many ways to save our daughter, but it shouldn't mean killing my true self or forcing a mother to choose without leaving her any options. Dong Pingyu smiled, both helpless and sarcastic. Let's divorce. If it weren't for Xuanyuan, we would have divorced over a decade ago, right? When Dong Pingyu had an affair, Xuanyuan was still very young. I couldn't trust leaving her with him, but if I took the child and didn't work, we'd quickly run out of money. I had no choice but to forgive him. At least with Dong Pingyu around, Xuanyuan had a complete family, and I could focus on my career. These years, our marriage was just a facade. Though not entirely miserable, it was far from harmonious. If Dong Pingyu had asked for a divorce before Xuanyuan's incident, I would have agreed without hesitation. But now I hesitated. No matter how hard I had worked, it seemed I couldn't escape the fate of being forced to choose. Choosing divorce might free me, but it would leave Xuanyuan with a broken family. I borrowed a cigarette on the rooftop, watching it burn down to the end. In this life, I had gained so much, but the one thing I couldn't lose was my daughter. Dong Pingyu texted me saying Xuanyuan wanted corn and pork rib soup, so he hurried back to cook. Before returning to the hospital, I washed my hands twice to remove the smell of smoke. However, when I opened the door, the bed was empty, with the disconnected for tube swaying uneasily in the air. Xuanyuan had disappeared from the hospital. The surveillance only showed her leaving in regular clothes, but she didn't go home or to school. We went to her rented apartment, but her roommates hadn't seen her either. Dong Pingyu looked ashen, helplessly calling every relative and friend he could think of. Jianhui, if something happens to our daughter, you'll regret it forever. I didn't argue, because I couldn't bear to think of that possibility. After splitting up from Dong Pingyu, I drove around, searching every place Xuanyuan might go. The daycare she once hated was now a park. Every Friday, Xuanyuan would wait by the classroom door, never crying or fussing, until one of us finally arrived late in the evening. Back then, a simple ice cream or a trip to the zoo could make her happy for the entire weekend. The KFC she loved had turned into another store. Xuanyuan would always challenge me to a game of Gamoku, determined to win so she could indulge in a meal there. She never gave up despite losing many times, and when she finally won, I kept my promise, not using the rain as an excuse. Eating mashed potatoes, she declared me the best mom in the world, making the rain-soaked clothes feel warm. Later, I had to be hospitalized multiple times for stomach issues. Xuanyuan would come straight after school, feeding the koi downstairs before coming up to do her homework, often playing with puzzles on the empty bed beside me. I told her I could leave the hospital once she completed a 1,000-piece puzzle. She always took it seriously. Despite moving twice, I kept that puzzle framed in my study. Now, the missing pieces of that puzzle were coming back, revealing a complete past. Xuanyuan was never a willful child. What she needed was communication, and what I needed was understanding. These were not conflicting needs. In the old courtyard, by the fish pond, sat a girl who looked like a lost lamb. I walked over and gently hugged her. "I'm sorry Mom is late. I thought you only loved your work, not me." I didn't realize you were unhappy. Xianyuan said she overheard my conversation with Dong Pingyu. Now, she let down her guard and hesitantly shared her recent heartbreak. At just over 20, she placed more importance on romantic relationships than anything else. Xianyuan couldn't handle the breakup and had no one to talk to. She couldn't imagine how I had endured years with a man who constantly let me down. Flowers bloom when people are asleep, and rain comes when you're not done having fun, I said, holding her cool hand in mine to warm it. You have to believe in the arrangements of fate and allow those you love to leave. Don't dwell on what you've lost. Learn to look forward. For me, it's enough that your dad loves and cares for you. In the future, you'll meet someone better. Even if you don't, you can double your love for yourself. When Xianyuan opened her arms and hugged me back, I realized that she had truly grown up. She was stronger and braver than I had ever imagined. Her eyes, slightly red, sparkled brightly as she smiled through her tears. Mom, divorced dad, you both deserve to live your own lives. And by the way, you look cooler with short hair. My chemotherapy is going well, and I've made significant progress towards recovery. The company has undergone a year of reform and has completely turned around from the brink of bankruptcy. Our online sales now account for 87% of total sales, and our disabled workers have adapted remarkably well to customer service roles, performing exceptionally. Both the company and I have been honored with model titles, and representatives from various regions have visited our company and factory to learn from our experiences. Hiring disabled individuals should not just be a tax exemption for companies. Enabling them to become self-sufficient is the sustainable approach. This year, after the Chinese New Year, we implemented a green channel for recruiting housewives, providing them with additional employment opportunities. It turns out that despite being disconnected from society for many years, with short-term training, their work capabilities are no less than those of men, and they often show even greater initiative. The media initially distorted Xianyuan's story, but thanks to the voices of support from online defenders, our message was amplified. Please give mothers the right to choose. This sentence, spoken by my daughter, garnered nearly 5 million followers on the social media account she opened for me. Perhaps it was the reconciliation with my daughter that allowed me to see things from another perspective, gaining more recognition from others. With rationality and understanding, life offers more choices and becomes more exciting. With Xianyuan's support, I divorced Dong Pingyu. Leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I finally released the breath I had been holding since the day I discovered his infidelity. Years of constant arguments, even physical altercations, have left our love in ruins. But the familial bond still remains. Facing Dong Pingyu's apology, I simply waved my hand and walked away. On the day of our daughter's graduation ceremony, for the first time in over a decade, Dong Pingyu and I appeared together. As Xianyuan accepted her bouquet, proudly introducing me to her classmates, I felt a sense of awkwardness that I hadn't experienced in years. Daughter, Jianhui, look here. With Dong Pingyu's laughter in the background, Xianyuan linked arms with me and turned towards the camera. Happiness was captured in that photograph, frozen in time, and in that moment, it was truly ours.